Ladies, have you ever felt a lump in your throat, a burning pain in your chest, when you witnessed a mother who gave her whole life to her children, only to be betrayed by them in the end? I ask this not to make you feel hopeless, but because this is a harsh reality many families are living through right now. There are women who, in their younger years, carried the entire burden of the household, raising children, supporting their husbands, sacrificing every dream they ever had, only to find themselves, in their later years, cast aside like an old piece of furniture. How can life be so unfair? How can the very person who embodies love, sacrifice, and devotion become the one left in humiliation and loneliness? This is not just the story of someone far away. It could be the story of your neighbor, your sister, your mother, or even yourself. And we, as women who have gone through hardship, heartbreak, and disappointment, cannot just sit silently while this injustice keeps repeating itself. Let me share with you the story of May, a 70-year-old woman living in California. She lost her husband Robert to illness. The only thing left of their 40 years together is the old wooden family home, 4 walls that carried decades of love, struggle, and memories. To May, that house is not just lumber and bricks. It is the heartbeat of her family. It is where her children were born, where they took their first steps, where laughter echoed during holidays and tears fell during hard times. But not long after Robert passed, the differences between her 2 sons surfaced like open wounds. John, the eldest, a businessman in New York with mounting debts, insisted on selling the house to divide the money. David, the youngest, a high school teacher, wanted desperately to keep it, both to honor their father and to give their mother a place of peace and belonging. Instead of pulling closer in grief, the brothers stood on opposite sides, turning their mother into a fragile rope being pulled back and forth. Imagine it. May, grieving the loss of her husband, already weakened by age, now forced to watch her sons clash like enemies over the very home where she built her life. Can there be any pain more piercing? Can there be any humiliation greater than watching your own children, born from your very body, tear each other apart over money right there, in front of the father's photograph on the wall? I know many of you listening right now feel the outrage rising inside you, and you should, because silence has never protected anyone from injustice. Too many women like May swallow their pain, whispering to themselves, "They are my children. I'll endure. I'll sacrifice again." But sisters, that silence is what chains them to a life of suffering. That silence gives power to the ungrateful, the selfish, the ones who see money as more important than blood. May's story is not just a sad tale, it is a warning. It shows us that when greed takes the driver's seat in a family, anyone can become cruel, even to their own mother. And the ones who pay the price are always women, the mothers, the wives, the caretakers who gave everything and kept nothing for themselves. To every woman listening right now, I want to tell you this: do not accept injustice in silence. If you are in May's position, remember, you have a voice. You have the right to live your later years in peace and dignity. You have the right to be respected, to hold on to the home you built, to keep what your love and labor created. Do not let blind maternal sacrifice turn you into someone who suffers endlessly. Love must walk hand in hand with fairness and with wisdom. And if you are not in May's position but watching it happen around you, then do not look away. Do not shrug and think, "That's not my business." Because one day it could be you. And if we remain silent today, who will defend us tomorrow? I speak with outrage because I see May's shadow in thousands, even millions of women across the world. They may be called May in California, or Lan, or Maria, or Fatima in other parts of the world. The names change, but the truth remains. They are women who gave everything to their families, and in return, were left with betrayal, silence, and loneliness. Sisters, we cannot let this cycle continue. We must teach our children, firmly and clearly, that the greatest inheritance is not money, not land, not houses. The greatest inheritance is family itself. When family bonds are broken, no wealth can glue them back together. You can live in a mansion, but if your heart is empty and your mother is crying, it will never be a home. So I urge you, if this story touches your heart, if you feel May's pain in your bones, then speak out, share it, let it be heard. Let our voices ripple out into the world like waves, so the next generation understands that family is sacred, that a mother's dignity is not for sale, and that love is the one treasure that must never be betrayed. And if you yourself have lived through injustice, do not bury it, tell it. Because when you tell your story, you are not just freeing yourself, you are also protecting the women who will come after you. You are reminding your children and all children that family is not a marketplace. Love is not currency. A mother's sacrifice is not something to be bartered away. May's story must be told again and again until it pierces hearts and awakens consciences. Because if we allow the world to forget, then another mother will suffer tomorrow. But if we raise our voices, then maybe, just maybe, one less woman will have to cry alone in her kitchen, betrayed by the very children she once carried in her arms. The funeral had barely ended when the storm began. The scent of white lilies still lingered in the Miller home. Candles still flickered beside Robert's framed photograph. May sat quietly in the living room, her black dress heavy with sorrow, her hands trembling as she clutched her rosary. She thought perhaps for a few weeks at least, her sons would set aside their differences, would hold her close while she learned to breathe again without her husband. She was wrong. "Mom," John said, his voice low but sharp, "we need to talk about the house." May froze. She lifted her weary eyes to her eldest son. "John, not now. Your father has only just been laid to rest." But John was relentless. "The market is at its peak. If we sell the property now, we'll make enough to secure everyone's future. I've already spoken to a realtor. He's confident we can close the deal quickly." David, standing near the fireplace, spun around in disbelief. "Are you kidding me, John? Dad isn't even gone a week and you're already talking about money? About selling the only home we've ever known?" The air cracked with tension. May's heart raced. She wanted to shout, to beg them to stop, but her voice caught in her throat. John clenched his fists. "Don't be naive, David. This house is falling apart. Mom can't live here alone forever. You think keeping it will bring Dad back? It's just wood and nails. What we need is financial security." David stepped forward, his voice rising. "This isn't about Dad coming back. It's about respect. It's about memory. This house is where we grew up. It's where Mom belongs. Selling it would be erasing everything he built with his hands." May's eyes welled with tears. She remembered Robert sanding the porch every spring, fixing the roof in the pouring rain, building the swing set for the boys in the backyard. Every corner of that home carried his fingerprints. "You only care about money." David spat, his face flushed red. "You don't care about Mom. You don't care about family. All you want is a check to bail you out of your debts." John's jaw tightened. He shot his brother a glare so sharp it could cut steel. "And what about you, little brother? You think teaching high school pays the bills? You're broke, clinging to some fantasy of family tradition. You can't even afford to fix the leaky roof. Who's going to pay for Mom's medical bills when the time comes? Your teacher's salary?" "Enough!" May cried, her voice breaking as she rose from her chair. Her frail body trembled, but her eyes blazed with desperation. "Stop this fighting. Your father would be heartbroken to hear you speak this way." But the brothers didn't stop. Their voices grew louder, sharper, like knives slashing at old wounds. David turned to his mother. "Mom, don't listen to him, please. This is your home. This is where Dad wanted us to remember him. Don't let John pressure you." John stepped closer to May, his tone forceful, persuasive. "Mom, think rationally. You can't manage this place on your own. Selling it isn't betrayal, it's common sense. You'll have enough money to live comfortably, to finally rest after all these years." May looked from one son to the other, her heart breaking into pieces. Was this what her life had come to? Her husband gone, and her children, her very blood, tearing each other apart in front of her? She felt like a rope, pulled violently from both ends, fraying with every tug. Her voice trembled. "John, David, you are brothers. Why can't you see that this house doesn't matter as much as your bond? Please, don't let greed and anger destroy what your father and I spent our lives building." But her plea fell on deaf ears. David's fists shook. "If you touch those papers, John, if you dare try to sell this house, you'll have to go through me." John's voice dropped to a cold whisper. "Don't challenge me, David. I'll do what needs to be done for Mom, for all of us, even if you're too blind to see it." Quote. The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. May collapsed back into her chair, clutching her chest, gasping for breath. The two men stood frozen, rage burning in their eyes, but fear beginning to creep in as they saw their mother's fragile frame shake. For a moment, time stood still. The house that had once echoed with children's laughter now vibrated with anger and betrayal. Ladies, can you feel the weight of May's pain? Can you imagine what it's like to lose your husband, only to watch your children, your flesh and blood, destroy each other in the very house you built together? How many women like May are forced to choose between their children, forced to watch love rot under the poison of greed? It is outrageous. It is heartbreaking. And it is happening in more homes than we dare to admit. This is why we must raise our voices. If you are a mother listening to this, do not let silence be your prison. Do not allow your sacrifices to be erased by selfish arguments. And if you are a daughter, a sister, a friend, stand up for the Mays of this world. Remind your family that a house may be sold, but once a family is broken, it can never be bought back. May's tears, her trembling body, her silent prayers, these are not just her story. They belong to every woman who has ever been caught in the crossfire of her children's greed. And if we do not speak out, if we do not teach our children the value of family over fortune, then tomorrow it could be us. The days after the funeral stretched into a blur of silence for May. She spent her mornings sitting by the window, the same window where she and Robert had once sipped coffee together, watching the sun rise over the oak trees. But now, the silence was heavy, broken only by the sound of her son's footsteps echoing through the house, and the arguments that simmered beneath every word they exchanged. John had grown more restless. His phone buzzed constantly with calls he refused to answer. May noticed the worry etched on his face, the way his jaw clenched every time another message came in. But instead of opening his heart, he hardened himself even further. One evening, as May set dinner on the table, John leaned forward and spoke with icy determination. "Mom, David, this house has to go. I've already spoken to Harris, the attorney. He has buyers lined up. They're offering more than market value. This is our chance." David slammed his fork down. "Our chance? Or your chance, John? Let's not pretend. You're drowning in debt, aren't you? You need this money for yourself." John's face flushed. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I know enough," David shot back. "You walk around acting like the savior of this family, but the truth is, you're desperate. You gambled everything in New York, and now you want to drag Mom into your mess. Admit it!" May's heart thudded painfully. "David, please." But John's mask cracked. His voice trembled with fury and shame. "Fine. You want the truth? Yes, I lost money. Yes, I made mistakes. Do you have any idea what it's like to carry the weight of a business? Employees depending on you, creditors breathing down your neck? You think your little teacher's salary makes you superior? You're living in a bubble while the real world crushes men like me." David leaned across the table, eyes blazing. "And what about Mom? What about the woman who held this family together while you were off chasing deals and living in penthouses? You think she deserves to lose her home because you couldn't keep your greed in check?" May pressed her trembling hands together. "Please, stop, both of you." But the words kept spilling, sharper and crueler. John jabbed a finger toward his brother. "You've always been the golden boy, David. Dad's favorite. You could afford to sit back, safe in your little world, while I carried the real responsibilities. I was the one expected to succeed, to uphold the family's name. And now, when I ask for help, all you do is judge me." David's voice shook with anger. "Help? This isn't about help. This is about betrayal. You want to sell our father's legacy. You want to tear apart everything he built, everything Mom sacrificed for. Don't you dare call that help." The room fell into a suffocating silence. May felt her chest tighten, her breath shallow. She looked at her sons, their faces twisted by anger, their eyes filled with resentment, and she barely recognized them. "Do you hear yourselves?" May whispered, her voice breaking. "Your father gave everything for this family. And now, before his grave has even settled, you're ready to destroy each other? Is this what 40 years of love has come to?" John lowered his gaze, but his voice remained cold. "Mom, I'm thinking about your future. This house is too big, too old. You can't live here forever. If we sell, you'll have comfort, security. Isn't that what Dad would have wanted?" "No," David said firmly. "What Dad wanted was for us to protect this home, to protect Mom, to protect each other. Not to sell our souls to the highest bidder." May's tears slipped down her cheeks. "I don't need comfort bought with betrayal. I need my family whole." But John could not let go. His pride, his debts, his desperation, everything drove him deeper into darkness. He saw the house not as a memory, not as a sanctuary, but as the key to his escape. And May saw it, all the selfishness, the fear, the hunger for money that had consumed her eldest. She felt the weight of injustice pressing down on her. She had given her whole life to raise her sons, only to be treated like a pawn in their battle. Ladies, imagine May's pain. Imagine being 70 years old, with a frail body and a broken heart, watching your children, your own flesh and blood, reduce your life's work to a bargaining chip. Imagine the anger boiling inside you as you realize your sacrifices mean nothing to them. This is not just May's story. It is the story of countless women who have given everything, only to be discarded when money enters the picture. And it should make every one of us furious. Because when greed speaks louder than love, when self-interest destroys respect, families collapse. And who pays the heaviest price? Always the mothers. Always the women who carried the family on their backs. So I ask you, my sisters, how long will we allow this? How long will we let money outweigh memory? Let selfishness outweigh sacrifice? If you have lived this pain, if you have seen it in your own family, do not stay silent. Speak. Protect what is sacred. Remind your children that inheritance is not about houses or bank accounts. It is about love, respect, and honor. For May, the battle was just beginning. But for us, her story is a warning. If we do not teach our families the true value of what we have built, then one day, our sacrifices too will be sold off, piece by piece, to the highest bidder. May sat in the living room as evening shadows stretched across the wooden floorboards. The house felt colder now, not because of the weather, but because of the silence between her sons. Every word they exchanged seemed to carry barbs, cutting deeper into her weary heart. She had prayed for peace after Robert's passing, but instead, her home had become a battlefield. "Mom," John said suddenly, breaking the silence. His voice was measured, but underneath it carried a demand. "We can't keep delaying this. You need to sign the papers. Harris will handle the rest." May's hands trembled around the teacup she held. She had been avoiding this moment, hoping her sons would find reconciliation. But now, the confrontation loomed like a storm she could no longer outrun. Before she could answer, David shot to his feet, No, Mom, don't listen to him. He's trying to pressure you. You don't owe anyone your signature. This is your home, Dad's home, our home. John's eyes flared. For God's sake, David, stop pretending you care about Mom's future. You just want to cling to your childhood fantasies, your precious memories. You think nostalgia will pay the bills? You think memories will fix the roof or cover medical expenses? David stepped forward, fists clenched. And you think money will heal a broken family? You think selling off our father's blood and sweat will give Mom peace? No, John, it will destroy her. May's voice cracked. Please, stop this. Please. But neither son heard her. Their words grew louder, more poisonous, and May felt herself shrinking into the chair as if trying to disappear. You're selfish. John barked at his brother. You want to chain Mom to this old house because it suits your sentimental ideals. You don't care if she suffers. And you're a hypocrite, David shouted back. You're not doing this for Mom. You're doing this for yourself, for your debts, for your pride. Admit it, you're willing to sacrifice her happiness to save your own skin. May pressed her hands over her ears, but their voices pierced through, louder than the ticking clock on the mantel. She saw Robert's picture on the wall, his kind eyes staring back at her, and she whispered, "Oh, Robert, why did you leave me to face this alone?" At last, she forced herself to stand. Her knees wobbled, but her voice rose, filled with pain. Enough, both of you. Her sons froze, startled by the anguish in her tone. Tears streamed down her wrinkled face. I am your mother, May said, clutching her chest. Do you not see what you're doing to me? You're tearing me apart. I have one son pulling me this way, another pulling me that way. Do you want me to break in too? Is that what you want? John's lips parted, but no words came out. David lowered his gaze, shame flickering in his eyes. May's sobs shook her fragile body. I carried you both inside me. I fed you, clothed you, stayed awake when you were sick, prayed for you every night. And now, after all these years, all I hear are accusations, greed, and anger. What happened to my boys? What happened to the love your father and I poured into you? The room fell silent except for May's sobbing. Her hands clutched the armrest of her chair, her knuckles white. Mom, John said softly, guilt creeping into his voice. I just want to make sure you're safe. May shook her head violently. No, don't twist this into care. This isn't about my safety, it's about your pride, your debts, your selfishness. Do you think I don't see it? Do you think I'm blind? John flinched as though slapped. David reached for her hand, his own voice trembling. Mom, I swear, I only want to protect what matters. I don't want to lose this home. I don't want to lose you. May turned to him, her eyes filled with sorrow. And do you not see that your stubbornness is also breaking me? You say you're fighting for me, but every time you scream at your brother, every time you fuel this war, you push me closer to the grave. David's mouth went dry. He looked down at the floor, unable to meet her gaze. May sank back into the chair, her strength drained. You are both my sons. I cannot choose between you. Don't make me choose. Don't put me in this prison where every decision means losing one of you. Her words hung heavy in the air, a truth too painful to ignore. Ladies, imagine her agony. Imagine being 70 years old, widowed, frail, and forced into the cruelest position a mother could face, choosing between her children. Imagine giving everything to raise them, only to become the rope in their tug-of-war. This is not just May's story. It is the story of countless mothers, silenced and cornered by the selfishness of those they love most. It is outrageous. It is unacceptable. And it is why we must raise our voices. No mother should have to beg her children for peace. No woman should be forced to trade her dignity for the illusion of harmony. And yet, how many Mays are out there right now, crying silently in kitchens, praying for children who only think of themselves? If you are listening to this and you feel May's pain in your bones, do not ignore it. Speak out. Teach your children before it is too late that love is not measured in dollars, and a mother's worth is not negotiable. Do not let silence make you a prisoner in your own home. May's tears that night were not just hers. They belong to every woman who has ever been torn apart by her children's greed and stubbornness. And unless we change, unless we demand respect, tomorrow they could be ours. The next morning, May woke to the sound of voices in the living room. Her fragile body ached from another sleepless night, her heart still heavy from the arguments between her sons. As she shuffled down the hallway, she realized there was a new voice, a smooth, confident baritone that did not belong to either of her boys. "Mrs. Miller," the man said as she entered, standing up from her sofa with a polished smile. "I'm Harris. Your son John asked me to stop by. I represent a group of investors who are very interested in your property." May tightened her grip on the doorframe. "Investors?" Her voice was faint, uncertain. John quickly stepped in. "Mom, don't worry. Harris is here to help. He's a real estate attorney, very professional. He's just going to explain our options." David shot up from the armchair, his face already red with anger. "Our options? You mean your scheme, John? You didn't even ask Mom before bringing a stranger into our home." Harris raised his hands, as if to calm the storm. "I understand emotions are high, gentlemen. This is a difficult time. But I assure you, I'm only here to present an opportunity. The market is booming. Properties like this charming, historic, with acreage are in high demand. My clients are prepared to pay well above market value. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance." David's laugh was bitter. "A once-in-a-lifetime chance? For who? For you and your clients? For John and his debts? Because it's not for Mom. She doesn't need money, she needs peace. She needs her home." John's voice cut sharp through the air. "Don't twist this, David. Peace doesn't fix broken plumbing. Peace doesn't pay for health care. Harris is offering us security. That's what Mom deserves." May sat slowly, her body trembling. She looked at Harris, this stranger who now spoke as if he understood her life, her needs. His smile was courteous, but his eyes were calculating. She felt as though her house, her sanctuary, was already being measured, priced, stripped of its meaning. "Mrs. Miller," Harris said smoothly, turning his attention to her, "I know this is difficult, but selling now would give you financial freedom. You could move somewhere easier to manage, perhaps closer to John in New York. A modern apartment with no maintenance, no burdens. Doesn't that sound appealing?" May's lips parted, but no words came. Appealing? To leave behind the porch where she and Robert had shared morning coffee? To abandon the oak tree where her boys played catch? To erase 40 years of memories for a check with numbers on it? Before she could speak, David burst out. "Stop trying to sweet-talk her. She doesn't want your apartment or your investors' dirty money. This is her home, Harris. How dare you stand in this living room and talk about tearing it apart?" Harris's smile tightened. "Young man, emotions are natural, but they shouldn't cloud judgment. This is about practicality. Your brother understands that. You do well to follow his example." David took a furious step forward. "Don't you dare lecture me about judgment. You don't know this family. You don't know what this house means." "David!" May cried, her voice weak but desperate. "Please, don't." But John leapt to his feet, placing himself between David and Harris. "That's enough. Harris is here because I asked him, and you don't get to dictate what's best for Mom. You think you're some kind of hero, but you're selfish. You're clinging to this house because of your own attachment, not because of Mom's needs." David's chest heaved, his fists trembling. "And you're ready to sell her soul just to dig yourself out of debt." The words hung heavy in the air. May's breath caught, her heart pounding painfully in her chest. Harris cleared his throat, adjusting his tie. "Perhaps I should give you some time, but Mrs. Miller, remember, offers like this don't last forever. My clients are eager. All it takes is your signature, and you'll have financial security for the rest of your days. He set a folder on the coffee table, the papers crisp and ominous. Then, with a shallow bow, he excused himself, leaving the storm to rage behind him. As the door closed, May buried her face in her hands. She felt surrounded, trapped, her home invaded by greed, her sons divided by selfishness, her voice drowned out by the noise of others deciding her fate. "Mom," John said softly, picking up the folder, "this is the right thing. Please, think about your future." May looked up, her eyes swollen with tears. My future? My future was with your father. My future was watching my sons love each other, respect each other. What kind of future is this where I am forced to choose between my children or to sell the very life we built?" David knelt beside her, his voice shaking. "You don't have to choose, Mom. We can keep the house. We can honor Dad. I'll take care of you. I'll do whatever it takes." John's voice hardened again. "And what happens when you can't, David? When the roof collapses, when medical bills rise? Will your love pay for it, or will you come crawling back, wishing we had taken the deal?" May's sobs filled the room, fragile and raw. She felt like the walls of her beloved home were closing in, suffocating her. Her husband was gone. Now, even her son seemed lost, one blinded by desperation, the other consumed by anger. And she, the mother who had given everything, was left voiceless, drowning in their war. Sisters, can you feel her pain? Can you imagine what it's like for May to sit in her own living room, listening to strangers and even her own child talk about selling her life as if it were merchandise? To have no control, no respect, after decades of sacrifice? This is why we must not be silent. This is why we must demand that families remember. A mother is not a bargaining chip, a home is not just property, and love cannot be sold. The night was heavy with silence. May sat in her bedroom, staring at the faint glow of the lamp on her nightstand. She could hear every creak of the old house, every whisper of wind against the windows. But there was another sound, faint and deliberate, the squeak of a drawer in Robert's study. Her stomach twisted. Slowly, she rose and shuffled down the hallway. In the dim light of the study, she saw John bent over the desk, his hands trembling as he pulled out a stack of papers. His face was pale, eyes darting nervously, like a thief in his own home. May's breath caught in her throat. She didn't need to see the bold print to know what those papers were: the deed to the house. "John," she whispered, her voice fragile but sharp enough to make him freeze. He turned quickly, guilt flashing across his face. "Mom, this isn't what it looks like." Before she could answer, footsteps thundered down the hall. David appeared in the doorway, his eyes blazing. "What the hell are you doing?" John straightened, clutching the documents. "I'm doing what needs to be done. Harris is ready. If we wait any longer, the offer will vanish." David lunged forward, his voice raw with fury. "Yusne akibastard. You were going to sell the house behind Mom's back? Behind all of our backs?" "David, stop," May pleaded, her hands trembling. But David was shaking with rage. "Do you have no shame, John? Do you even see what you're doing? This isn't just paperwork. This is Dad's legacy. This is Mom's life. And you treat it like it's a poker chip in one of your stupid deals." John's jaw tightened. He held the deed tighter, like a shield. "Don't lecture me about legacy. Legacy doesn't pay hospital bills. Legacy doesn't erase debt collectors. You think you're protecting Mom, but you're sentencing her to rot in this decaying house. I'm the only one who sees reality." David lunged, grabbing at the papers. "Reality? Reality is that you're drowning in debt and dragging us down with you. Admit it, you don't care about Mom. You only care about saving yourself." The two brothers grappled, the sound of paper tearing filling the air. The deed crumpled between their fists as they shoved each other, their rage echoing off the wooden walls. May's cry pierced the chaos. "Stop! For God's sake, stop!" But they didn't stop. David shoved John against the desk, the photograph of Robert rattling dangerously on the wall. John pushed back, his fist nearly striking his brother's face. They were no longer men, they were children again, fighting, but this time with decades of resentment and desperation behind every blow. The picture frame fell, shattering on the floor. Robert's smiling face lay cracked beneath the shards of glass. May gasped, her knees buckling. "Look at what you've done," David roared, pointing to the broken photograph. "Even Dad's memory isn't safe from your greed." John's eyes flickered with guilt for a moment, but then hardened. "Don't put this on me. You think you're the saint, but your stubbornness is killing Mom just as much as my decisions. You think she can handle this stress forever?" May stumbled forward, clutching her chest. "Enough! Enough!" But her voice was drowned in the clash of her sons, their shouts, their accusations. She felt her breath tighten, sharp pain spreading across her chest. David tore the deed from John's hands, his own fingers bleeding from the torn paper. "This house stays. Over my dead body will you sell it?" John's face twisted with rage and despair. "Then so be it." May collapsed, her body crumpling onto the rug. The sound silenced the room like a gunshot. "Mom!" both sons cried, rushing to her side. Her face was pale, her breath shallow, her trembling hand pressed against her heart. Tears spilled from her eyes as she looked at them, her boys, her flesh and blood, kneeling beside her in panic, yet still miles apart in spirit. "Is this what I raised you for?" she whispered. Her voice was so faint they had to lean close to hear. "To fight over walls and wood? To break your mother's heart in the same house where I gave you life?" "Mom, I'm sorry," David stammered, tears streaming down his face. "I didn't mean—" John gripped her hand, his own tears falling. "I only wanted to protect you. I thought," May's voice cracked, "protect me? By destroying everything I love? By turning this home into a battlefield? Your father would be ashamed, and I cannot bear it anymore." Her eyes fluttered shut, her body limp. "Call 911, David shouted, fumbling for his phone. John pressed trembling hands to her chest, his face contorted with guilt. "Hang on, Mom, please. Don't leave us. Not like this." The paramedics arrived minutes later, their flashing lights painting the old house in harsh red and blue. As May was lifted onto the stretcher, her sons stood side by side, silent, broken, their anger replaced by fear. For the first time, John and David looked at each other, not with hatred, but with horror. They had nearly destroyed the one person who loved them beyond measure. "Ladies, can you feel the injustice?" May gave her entire life to raise her children, to build a home filled with love. And in her final years, what did she get? Greed, betrayal, and violence between the very sons she sacrificed everything for. This is why we must not stay silent. This is why we must teach our families that no inheritance, no house, no money is worth a mother's tears. Because once those tears fall, once her heart breaks, there is no wealth in the world that can repair it. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and sorrow. Machines beeped steadily in the dim room where May lay, her frail body dwarfed by white sheets. An oxygen tube rested beneath her nose, each breath shallow but steady. John sat slumped in a chair, his suit wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless hours. His phone, usually glued to his hand, lay forgotten on the floor. David stood near the window, arms crossed tightly against his chest, staring out at the blurred city lights. The brothers hadn't spoken since the ambulance arrived. The weight of what had happened pressed on them like an iron chain. When May stirred, her eyelids fluttering open, both sons rushed to her side. "Mom," John whispered, his voice breaking. "Thank God you're awake." "Mom, we're here," David added softly, his hands trembling as he reached for hers. May blinked slowly, her gaze moving from one son to the other. Her lips parted, dry and weak. "Robert?" she murmured. David shook his head gently. "No, Mom, it's us. John and David, we're here." A single tear slipped down May's cheek. She squeezed David's hand weakly. I thought I was going to see him." "Don't say that," John pleaded, leaning closer. "You're going to be fine. The doctors said you just need rest." Her eyes lingered on him, full of sorrow. "Rest? How can I rest, when my own children make war in my home?" The words sliced through John like a knife. His shoulders shook. "Mom, I'm sorry. I never wanted this. I just thought—" May raised a trembling hand, silencing him. Her voice was weak, but every word carried weight. "You thought money would save us. You thought selling our home would give me comfort. But John, no amount of money can buy peace. No amount of money can replace love." David lowered his head, guilt flooding his chest. May turned her gaze to him. "And you, David, you think clinging to the house proves your devotion. But every time you fought your brother, every harsh word, every shout, it was like a dagger in my heart. Love isn't stubbornness. Love is patience. Love is kindness." Her words left both men silent, their pride stripped bare. May's hand trembled as she tried to clasp both of theirs together. "You are brothers. Flesh of my flesh. Do you not see? I don't care about the house. I don't care about the walls or the roof. I care about you. I care about the bond between you. That is your father's true legacy. That is what I cannot bear to lose." John's tears fell freely now. He gripped her hand tightly. "I lost sight of that, Mom. I let desperation and pride blind me. I thought I was protecting you, but all I did was hurt you. Hurt us." David's voice cracked as he spoke. "And I thought I was defending you, but in my anger, I hurt you too. I forgot that protecting you means more than just holding on to a house. It means holding on to love, even when it's hard." May closed her eyes, her lips trembling into a faint smile. "If you truly wish to honor me, and your father, then stop this battle. Do not let greed or anger destroy what we built with love. Promise me this." The brothers exchanged a long, heavy look. For the first time in months, maybe years, their eyes met not with hatred but with understanding. "I promise," John whispered. "I promise too," David added, his voice steady though tears streamed down his cheeks. May sighed, her body relaxing. "Good. Then perhaps I can rest, knowing my boys will not lose each other." The room was filled with silence, but it was no longer the suffocating silence of anger. It was the fragile silence of reconciliation, of wounds slowly beginning to mend. John leaned back, wiping his face. "David, I need to say this. I was wrong. I let my debts, my failures, turn me into someone I don't want to be. I'm sorry for trying to drag Mom into my mess." David shook his head. "And I'm sorry, too. I attacked you without mercy. I forgot you were my brother first, before any of this. I should have listened. I should have seen your pain." For a moment both men stood awkwardly, as though the distance between them was too wide to cross, but then David reached out, his hand trembling. John hesitated only a second before grasping it firmly. May's eyes opened again, watching them with tears of relief. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thin but full of joy. "This is what I prayed for. Not money, not houses, just this." Sisters, do you feel the power of her words? Can you hear the truth in May's trembling voice? All she wanted was for her children to remember that love is the only inheritance that matters. And yet, how many mothers, how many women, are forced to beg for what should be freely given? This is why we must be outraged. This is why we must not allow greed or anger to poison our families, because no check, no deed, No inheritance is worth the tears of a mother who gave everything. That night in the hospital, John and David began to awaken. Not to money, not to property, but to the sacred truth May had carried all along. Family is not about what you own, it's about who you love and how fiercely you protect that love. The days following May's collapse passed in a fragile rhythm of recovery. She remained in the hospital, her strength returning slowly, but her spirit seemed lighter now. Perhaps it was because she had finally spoken the truth her sons needed to hear. John and David spent those days at her side, quieter than ever before. Their arguments had ceased, replaced by awkward silences and hesitant glances. Neither man knew how to bridge the chasm they had dug between themselves, but both knew May's plea was still echoing in their hearts. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, John broke the silence. He was sitting at the edge of May's bed, staring at his hands. "David," he began softly, his voice uncertain, "I made an appointment with Harris today." David stiffened, his chest tightening. "For what?" John looked up, tears glistening in his tired eyes. "To tell him the deal's off. I'm not selling the house. Not now. Not ever." May's breath caught. Her frail hand reached for his. "John, are you certain?" He nodded. "Yes. I was blinded, Mom. By fear, by debt, by pride. I thought selling the house was the only way to fix things. But I see now it would have broken us beyond repair. It already almost did. I don't want money if it means losing my family." David's lips parted in disbelief. For a moment he didn't know what to say. Finally his voice cracked. "Do you mean that? Truly?" John turned to him, his eyes raw and vulnerable. "I do. I know I've hurt you, David. I tried to force you into my desperation. I dragged Mom into my failures. I can't undo it, but I can stop making it worse. I don't want to fight you anymore. I don't want to lose you." The weight of those words pressed against David's chest, unraveling the anger he had clung to for so long. His throat tightened as he whispered, "I don't want to lose you either, John. You're my brother. That's worth more than any house, any inheritance." May's eyes filled with tears of relief. She reached out, grasping both of her son's hands, pulling them together over her fragile body. This is all I ever wanted. Not wealth, not property, just to see my sons love each other." John swallowed hard. "I can't promise I'll fix everything overnight. I still have debts, still have mistakes to clean up, but I can promise this. I won't put money above family again." David squeezed his brother's hand firmly. "And I promise I won't let stubbornness blind me. I'll listen. I'll stand with you, not against you. We'll face things together this time." For the first time in years they embraced, awkward at first, then stronger, until the years of resentment began to crumble under the weight of forgiveness. May closed her eyes, whispering a prayer of gratitude. Later that night, the three of them talked quietly about the future. "What will we do about the house?" John asked hesitantly. May smiled faintly. "We will keep it. But it doesn't have to be a burden. You can both share the responsibility. Repair it together. Care for it together. Let it be not just a house, but a bond between you." David nodded eagerly. "I'll handle the upkeep. I can contribute from my salary. It won't be much, but I'll do whatever it takes. And I'll help too," John added, determination in his voice. "I'll find a way, even with my debts. I'll cut back, work harder. I don't want Mom to carry this alone anymore." "I don't want you to either, David." May's smile deepened, though her eyes glistened with tears. "Then the house will not just be a reminder of your father. It will be proof that you chose love over greed. That is a legacy worth keeping." The room was quiet after that, but it was no longer the silence of anger or guilt. It was the gentle silence of healing, the kind that follows a storm when the sky clears and the earth breathes again. "Sisters, Can you feel the warmth returning? May nearly lost her life because of her son's greed and anger. But sometimes it takes breaking to remember what truly matters. In the hospital that night, forgiveness replaced fury, and family became whole again. This is the lesson for us all. When we put love above pride, when we choose forgiveness over stubbornness, healing begins. No inheritance, no property, no amount of money can match the priceless gift of reconciliation. And for mothers like May, who sacrifice everything for their families, this is the greatest gift of all. A year passed, and the Miller house stood quietly at the edge of the California hills, its weathered wood glowing golden in the late autumn Sunday. Once a battlefield of bitter words, it now breathed with peace again. The broken picture frame of Robert had long been replaced, his smiling face now resting in a new frame, polished and carefully placed on the mantel. Fresh flowers stood beside it, a symbol that his memory still lived in every corner of the home. On Thanksgiving morning, the smell of roasted turkey and pumpkin pie drifted through the house. May, now stronger though still moving slowly with her cane, stood in the kitchen directing David as he chopped vegetables. She chuckled softly when he fumbled with the knife. "You were always better at books than cooking," she teased. David grinned, shaking his head. "Well, at least I'm trying. You know Dad never let me near the stove." Quote. John walked in carrying bags of groceries, his sleeves rolled up. His hair had more gray in it now, and his face looked older, but his eyes shone with a gentleness that had been missing before. "Don't worry, Mom. I've got dessert covered. Bought 3 pies just in case David ruins dinner." They laughed together, the sound filling the rooms where only shouts had echoed a year ago. At the table, when the food was laid out, May clasped her hands together. "Before we eat, let us give thanks," she said, her voice firm though her eyes shimmered with tears. She looked at her sons. "Last year, I thought I was going to lose both of you to pride, to anger, to greed. But here we are, together. That is more precious to me than any wealth. Thank you for choosing love." John cleared his throat, his voice rough. "Mom, I don't think a day passes that I don't regret how close we came to losing you. I can't change the past, but I promise I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt my love again." David nodded, his eyes moist. "And I promise, too, I'll never let anger blind me again. You're my brother, John. Nothing, no house, no money will ever come between us." They raised their glasses, and for the first time in years the Miller family's Thanksgiving was not shadowed by bitterness, but lit with gratitude. Winter came, and the house glowed with lights and garlands. On Christmas Eve, John's children visited, their laughter bouncing through the halls as they decorated the tree. May sat in her armchair, watching with shining eyes as her grandchildren hung ornaments, some of them handmade decades ago. "Grandma, did Grandpa hang this one?" one of them asked, holding up a wooden star. "Yes," May whispered, her smile tender. "He carved it himself. Every Christmas, he hung it right there at the top." John lifted his son onto his shoulders to place the star. For a moment, the whole family stood still, gazing at the twinkling tree, feeling Robert's presence as though he had never left. The house, once on the brink of being sold, now pulsed with life. It had become what it was always meant to be, a sanctuary of memory and love. The following spring, on the anniversary of Robert's passing, the family gathered again. The oak tree in the yard, where John and David had played catch as boys, now shaded the picnic table where flowers and candles were placed in his honor. May spoke softly, her voice steady. "Your father always said a home is not measured in square feet or dollars. A home is measured in the love it holds. He would be proud to see you here, standing together again." David bowed his head. "We almost lost that lesson, but we found it again because of you, Mom." Quote. John placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. "And we won't forget it this time." The two men stood side by side, no longer adversaries but brothers bound by a shared promise. "Ladies, can you see it? A house once marked for sale turned into a beacon of unity. A family once divided by greed, now reunited by love. This is the true inheritance, not deeds or money, but forgiveness, compassion, and respect. May's story is every mother's story, every woman's fear and hope. She nearly lost her sons to selfishness, but by speaking the truth, she saved them. And in the end, the Miller family learned what we all must remember. The greatest legacy we leave is not property, it is love. That year, as May blew out the candles on her 71st birthday cake, she closed her eyes and whispered a prayer. "Thank you, Robert. They have found their way back." The room filled with cheers, laughter, and the warmth of a family whole again. And the old house, still standing strong on its hill, seemed to smile with them, its walls once more echoing not with anger, but with love.